Deer Hunter Podcast, a platform created to entertain, educate, and evolve the modern-day deer hunter.
Congrats, you've reached Dan's phone. Currently, I'm chest deep in swamp muck, wrestling a 20-pound coon. But if you leave your name and number, I will call you back if I make it out alive.
At the tone, please record your message. When you have finished recording, you may hang up or press 1 for more options.
Can't make this stuff up.
Hello?
Hey, Dan.
Hey. Phone never rang on this end. I don't know what caused that. I just looked down and saw it flashing. By the time I picked it up, it was already to voicemail.
Oh, no kidding. Well, that's okay. I got to hear your voicemail. It's one of my favorites. How was your evening? Did you see anything good?
No, it was miserable.
Really?
Not a thing moved. There was deer all over the fields on the way there. When I got there, it started pouring, and I think everything hunkered down.
Oh, really? Yeah, that's coming this way. I saw that. 100% chance of rain here in Michigan tomorrow, so you're getting it right now, huh?
Yeah, I checked the weather yesterday and early this morning, and they said it was going to stop around 2. And apparently that changed. It did stop at 2, and I thought it was just going to stay stopped. And we got hit with another front right when I got out there, so I just sat there and got soaked.
Jeez.
And actually, I would have probably left. I probably wouldn't even have hunted in that crap, but I was with somebody, and I'd had to walk past them to leave.
Oh, gotcha.
I hate doing that. I wouldn't want somebody to do that to me.
Yeah. No, I hear you. I got us recording now, just so you do know, but yeah, I hunted in a thunderstorm last weekend. I haven't had too many opportunities to go yet this year, and the times I have gone, same thing, just kind of nasty weather. But yeah, actually, Alex and I went last weekend. We went up north and went hunting, and ended up getting caught in a thunderstorm Sunday morning hunting, and yeah, it was pretty miserable. I was just absolutely soaked to the bone.
Yeah.
And, I know that was funny on your YouTube diary that you've been doing about that dog and that guy being out there and walking into your stand and yelling your name, and it ended up being the dog's name. That was hilarious, man. Can't make that stuff up.
You know, what's funny about that is that stuff just seems to always happen to me, and I got a theory that it happens to everybody, the crazy stuff. It's just that most people won't talk about it.
Yeah. That's a pretty funny one, though. The chances of that guy strolling through the woods yelling for his dog, whose name's
Can
Dan.
you hear him in the background?
Oh,
He's yelling,
yeah.
Dan.
Clear as day.
And it's right after I get a text from a guy that's hunting in the same woods telling me he shot one, so I'm thinking it's him, you know?
Oh, yeah. No, that was hilarious. Yeah. I know when I talked to you earlier, I said that's really cool that you've been keeping, the YouTube, like, pretty up to date, getting that stuff out real quick, keeping your diary going. It's been really enjoyable.
Yeah, I'm trying to upload a hunt right now, but it keeps failing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the one where I missed the 8-pointer.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm just starting to play around with some video, actually. My brother, I borrowed his GoPro last weekend when I went up north, and I did some still hunting with my longbow through the woods up there and used that GoPro for the first time. And he went to Ohio hunting this weekend, so we haven't got a chance to look at the videos even yet, but we're going to try to, we started a YouTube for the Deer Hunter podcast, and we, the podcast that we do in the studio, we have a video feed, and then, we're just trying to maybe plug in a little bit of hunting stuff and whatnot along the way as we get going. So
Sure.
It's been fun. But, hey, I want to get into deer hunting, and specifically what I want to talk to you tonight is kind of focusing on capitalizing on, these basically maybe the next 4 to 6 weeks of what we'll kind of scope right now as the rut, and we'll get a little more into detail about that. But before we talk about that, I wanted to ask you how your bear season went. I haven't talked to you since we did some bear baiting there at the end of the summer. Anything turn out to be good?
Well, I got schooled.
Did you?
Yeah, I did not get a bear again. So I've killed bears in every unit in Wisconsin, and I've killed them in Minnesota, and I've killed quite a few bears. But in that area of Wisconsin, between the hounds and the human pressure and how close the roads are, even though there's big bears there, they're really hard to kill. And I can say that we picked out some new spots for Tyler, and Tyler had bears the whole season, and he was passing on bears, but he didn't kill one either. He was holding out for a bigger one. But I'm seeing a trend where I really got to get deep there, and I got to get closer to the roads. Which kind of sounds funny, but I got to get closer to the main highway roads that are away from dogs.
Oh yeah.
And I got to get more remote from people. The spots that paid off the last time I was up there and almost produced, guys hunted next to, and they're giving out way, way, way more tags. I mean, they're giving out a tag almost every time you apply there now. So you either get it your first try, or you'll get it the next year for sure.
So something I didn't know, I was talking to Sam Ubel here a week or so ago. Just we were texting back and forth, and I know he was bear hunting, and I asked him how it went, and yeah, he said the same time he had a real hard time. And he told me, is this correct, that Wisconsin annually switches up who gets to go first, dog hunters or bait hunters? Season opens first or something along those lines?
That is true in the northern part of the state. It's true where they can hunt with dogs. But by me, they don't hunt with dogs. They just train with them.
Oh, okay.
So they're just chasing them. So our season opens down here the same every year.
I gotcha. Yeah. Yeah, I could see. Well, I mean, just even if they're I'm chasing them around with dogs. I mean, that does just arguably as much damage, right?
Well, if you think about how I bear hunt, I'm putting a bait near a bear bedding area where I think a bear will hole up. And if dogs find that bait and they continuously chase bears off there, those bears won't feel safe bedding next to there and coming in.
Right. Yep.
I know from experience. I mean, dog hunters argue with you about this stuff like crazy. They'll tell me I'm nuts, and that they chase bears off of baits, and then they come back, and it's like, okay, yeah, you do. But I can tell you this, that I've bumped a big bear off of a bait going into bait, the one that's been on camera over and over and over again, and I've done this many times, and you walk in when he's there, that bear never comes back.
Really?
So what does a hound running in there chasing him off there do?
Yeah, right. Plus putting all that scent down, I mean, you're just making them completely uncomfortable, I would imagine.
Right, and it's really hard to get away from them. I mean, those hounds go anywhere out there, and those guys are religious about it. And I've been getting my camera swiped from all the baits every time.
Really?
Yeah, they get in there with their dogs, and I don't know if it's that they don't want you to see them on there, or if they're just dirty people. You know, I ran into some dog hunters that were pretty cool guys up there, and I was talking to them, and they said that there's one group of guys, and it's a big group, and he goes, those guys are ruthless. They're the ones doing all the problems and making everybody look bad. So
that sucks.
There's one group over by me, apparently, that's causing all the problems. And I ran into them. I mean, they threatened me about, I told them that, I caught them with a bear treat right over one of my baits, which isn't illegal. It's just an ethical, moral thing.
It was a what?
A bear treat over the top of one of my baits.
Oh, okay.
So they had all their trucks parked in my spot, and so I go in there with my bait, and I bait the spot right in front of them, and I just says, hey, really, do you guys have to run the bears right off of my bait? And the guy, I said it real nice, but I was pretty intent on what I meant, but the guy just started screaming in my face, and it's public land, he can do what he wants, and he was been hunting there for years, and blah, blah, blah. And by the time I got to my truck, there's trucks pulling up and guys hopping out with baseball bats and all kinds of crap.
Holy shit.
you just get in your truck and you leave. You know,
Yeah,
you never
no
go back to
kidding.
that spot. But
No kidding.
and these guys can't even kill a bear and they get that aggressive.
Wow.
You know,
Man.
whatever. You know, there's good in it too, though. I mean, if they're out there doing this, nobody's killing bears. The bear population's increasing, and that's why they're giving so many tags away. And there's really big bears running around. They're just hard to kill. So the good in it is, I've got big trophy bears to target. I've just got to find a way to kill them, and I'll do that.
What is a trophy boar, like age and weight? I mean, it probably varies for different areas, right?
Yeah, it
But
does. It does. And if you go by weight, there's two kinds of people. People go by skull and people that go by weight. And if you go by weight, in Wisconsin, you got much heavier bears because they bait from April 14th through the season. So bears here eat bait from the time they get out of the den till the time they den back up. You know, so you'll get a bear that's 5 years old that weighs, 300 or 400 pounds. Where if we shoot a 5-year-old up in northern Minnesota, you're lucky if it weighs, 200, 250.
Oh, really?
You're really lucky. There's that big of a difference. Yeah.
Wow.
The bears I was shooting in northern Minnesota, my last one was 12 years old, and the one before that was 14. And that's, if you shot a bear that was 14 years old in Wisconsin, it'd be an absolute monster.
Wow. I've been hearing a lot of people in Michigan say that the bear numbers are up dramatically. People are even aggravated in the UP about the amount of tags that the state's willing to give out because people are putting in for lotteries, not getting drawn, and these might be even private landowners. And, they're running trail cameras on the property, and they say, man, we don't even see a single deer. It's just, we got, 13 different bears that we've identified on this property, and we, as landowners, we can't even get a tag. I know, throughout the state, people have been a little bit aggravated about it, that they feel like, the bear numbers are greatly increasing, and that the state would, be able to put out a few more tags, but it doesn't seem to be the case. I'm getting more and more interested in bear hunting. I just never have had the time or the ambition, really, but the more and more I pay attention to it, the more and more I'm getting interested in it. I'm going to have to start putting in for the lottery for the Upper Peninsula here, I think.
Yeah.
Well, what I wanted to do today is, since the last time we talked, I've been practicing with my mobile hunting skills, and let's say I went through every single one since Mario got the Hunting Beast podcast up on iTunes. I started at 1, and I think there was 23 or 22, and I listened to every single one, and then I went back and I've listened to a couple of them, a couple times over again, specifically the first one, with wind and thermals. That one's got so much stuff in it, but between listening to all that and just kind of getting into my hunting season, kind of knocking the dust off everything, getting out there in the woods and trying some new different approaches, I had a handful of questions that I wanted to go over with you, and I figure why not make a podcast out of it. So
sounds good.
All right. First thing, I guess this will kind of be a general question, and then we can break it down into a couple more parts if you feel necessary. But mobile hunting. So I thought I would be able to just kind of piece together a setup with some old aluminum climbing sticks and an old aluminum stand, and it proved to be highly inefficient because setting it up and taking it down, I can't find a way to do it quietly enough where I don't feel like I would be alerting deer if they were bedded within my proximity. So I wondered if you could walk me through, like, let's say you're getting out of the truck and you're heading to a spot. Are you moving quickly for a portion of that? Is there a distance that you get from that spot where you do start to I know you start to slow down and not make noise, and then on your final approach, how you're getting in there quietly, and then how from there you're getting up the tree specifically quietly, because I'm struggling with that.
Okay, the first thing I want to say is you get away with a lot more than what you think, especially if you go earlier in the day out to your hunting spots. Because so like if you got a spot where you got to get particularly close, or say it's particularly quiet, or you got dry leaves or something that you got to deal with. You're going to want to leave early in the day and get out there early, because just walking in, to 100 yards from a bed is not going to send that deer flying. It's just going to put him on alert if he does hear it. And if it's 2 hours before he gets up, believe me, he's going to forget about it, because there's all kinds of commotion in that woods. There's squirrels and everything else. And I actually think the quiet scares him more. So I don't know if you've ever listened to it when you're in a tree stand, but listen to all the squirrels and birds and stuff around you. It's pretty noisy in the woods. But when a deer walks in, the first thing I notice is how quiet it gets. And I'm sure a deer notices too when the woods gets quiet and then there's a marching going through. That's how he knows it's a large animal, just like I know it when a deer's coming. But you put yourself in a tree stand sometime and think about this. Yeah, you're up there and you reverse roles here, and you hear an audible snap of a branch on a trail heading your way from the known bedding area. You know that's a deer coming. You're sure of it. You're staring over there intently. You're waiting. You're getting ready. You're preparing yourself, and it never materializes. You're just staring there for 15 minutes, and then you start looking around, and you take a glance over there every now and then, and after half an hour, you've forgotten about it. I don't think a deer's much different. I mean, he hears something coming. He's going to be intent on it. And if the noise goes away, something either passed through, or he heard a branch fall, or it was a fat squirrel playing, But they'll forget about the stuff. But if it happens real close to when they're getting up, if you're getting in there for that last hour or something, then it's a little more worrisome. A little more likely you could do some damage. But even then, I've gone in and where I'm thinking I'm pretty noisy, and I get in a tree, and 45 minutes later, a buck gets up right in front of you and comes in. And I've gotten into trees with bucks bedded in front of me. Obviously I'm being quiet, but I don't think you have to be as quiet as what you think you do. You just go slow and don't sound like a human. Don't walk like a human. Don't just beat down a trail straight to the spot you're going. I'm going in slow, and I'm looking at things. I'm scouting my way in. I'm looking at sign, because I get intel every time I go into an area mobile. I want to know what's going on back there. I want to know if there's new rubs, there's, sign. I can go hunt a spot and not see a deer and come back with intel. I'm going to know if deer went through that area, if something's going on back there that I should know about. And like this year, some of the areas I went to were just full of rubs and sign. I didn't see a deer, but I know something's there. Mm-hmm. So then I start working that area. And on the other hand, an area that's known for big bucks that me and Mario go to all the time and have killed a lot of big bucks at. You've seen it in that swamp video where we go way back to 2 miles and kill those deer. We've killed 4 or 5 bucks back there now, and it's over 50% of the time that we hunt back there. Well, this year we went back there and did one hunt, and there ain't a sign of anything. There's not a rub back there. For the last mile walking back, there ain't a rub. There ain't a sign of deer. I don't have to bother going back there. You're getting intel when you're going in too. So I'm going in slow, looking at things. So that's going slow is good for you. It's good for hunting. It's good for the deer not hearing you. But you also take some time and look around. And that's what I'm doing. I'm also planning my path as I walk. Now, when you're going in mobile, obviously there's going to be a pounded trail to your stand. So you're kind of just taking a known route to it, an access route that you had kind of planned out. Mm-hmm. So when I'm going, I'm stopping, and this sounds real simplistic, but if you're not doing this, it's going to cause you issues. I'm looking ahead of me, and I'm planning a route based on the wind, based on the openings, based on what I can step on, I'm trying to look for rocks. I can step on logs. I can walk up and things like that if it's got dry leaves in there.
Yeah.
If I make a big noise, a loud noise, I stop and wait, let it settle down. And the big thing is that you don't make metallic noises or human noises.
Right.
You know, and so that's where I'm at. I mean, I can climb a tree and set up a stand real quiet because I've done it for years. And I always thought everybody could do it, but I noticed that that's a question that comes up a lot with the newer guys starting out. They say they make a lot of noise climbing.
Yeah. Well, the metallic thing definitely bit me in the ass. I mean, and it's one mistake, right? I mean, I dropped one thing and a buckle and it swung and hit something, and I'm just like, ugh, you know?
What usually causes that is a guy trying to do too much at once.
Yeah.
He tries to make one trip up the tree, or he tries to haul everything at once, and then you need more hands than you have. Real slow and easy. One stick at a time.
Do you utilize a lineman belt or anything when you're climbing, or?
I do not.
Okay. Because I know my brother and a couple other guys are using those, and they say, yeah, it slows you down, but it gives you the ability to have both hands free, and you can be a little more precise with what you're doing. And he said it's been a complete game changer for him as far as being able to be quiet, is utilizing one of those lineman belts off of his, off his safety system.
Mm-hmm.
So
I've heard that from people. I've tried it a little bit, but it just didn't seem for me. I'm getting around limbs and stuff. It's just a pain, and
yeah,
I just it's not for me. But it could be. I mean, for some people, and if it's making your hands free, yeah. A lot of times you're doing acrobats to get around obstacles in the tree to hang stuff, you know. But
do you go up the tree multiple times, or do you have a system where you can put a step on and go up and take your whole stuff up, or are you up and down once or twice to get established in there?
Yeah, I put the bottom step on at ground level. I climb the bottom step, not that I need to, but I like to measure with my knee.
Mm-hmm.
So the first step on my second stick is at my knee high, because your knee is your step length.
Yes.
So I space my knee apart from top of the bottom one to the next one. So I put the second one on, and I've barely done anything. Then I got to climb up, put the third one on, and climb down, and get the fourth one, put the fourth one up.
Gotcha.
And I got to climb down, get the fifth one, and put the fifth one up.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
So I hunt with 5 sticks all the time, and I use between 2 and 5,
Mm-hmm.
depending on where I'm hunting or what tree or whatever.
Yeah. And if there's deer out in front of you, or you expect that you're close enough to deer where they're bedded, obviously, yes, it's important that you're being quiet, but your movement could be an issue too. So are you just kind of, positioning yourself on like the back side of the tree to give you a little bit of cover?
I like to keep the tree between me and the deer. So when I'm climbing, I'm looking around the tree, and I'm looking to where I climb to. I'm making sure I don't get to a point where they can see me. Looking, you know what I'm saying, or
right.
And I got the tree for a blockade, so it's just really my arms are on the sides kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then I hang the stand on the front of the tree facing the deer, and then I just step around into it. But generally I'm far enough back where they can't see me. But there has been a few hunts where, yeah, they can see you from the spot if you get too high.
Right. Historically I've made that mistake. I always was, trying to get up 25 foot regardless of where I am or what I was doing. And one thing that I've really noticed now is looking more, as I'm going up that tree, and maybe I am only up 12 foot, but if I feel that I have adequate cover and it's the right setup, maybe 12 foot's where I need to be to get a deer killed, versus always thinking I got to go, sky high up in this tree so that nothing's going to see me.
Right.
Yeah, I need to, I'm going to go this week. Actually, I just talked to a guy Friday. There's a tree stand company out of Michigan. I'm sure you've seen their stuff, Hawk,
Mm-hmm.
and they make some lightweight aluminum stuff. And I just found out that they were, a Michigan-based company. And I talked to the guy on Friday, and I'm gonna go up to their facility, I think, this week and maybe try their mobile line because the stuff that I have just not. I don't know, man. It's old.
You know, the equipment you pick is really important, because that makes or breaks you. I mean,
Yeah.
the reason I get away with what I get away with is because I have a system down with my equipment. If you, like when I was young, before we even had Lone Wolf, I hunted with screw steps, and I think they were called mockers or something. They're some metal welded tree stand that had a chain on it. Well, I coated the chain with rubber, and I put electrical tape up the whole screw step so they didn't rattle in my pocket. And it was a pain, but I was able to work that way. But the thing is, you got to be able to get in crooked and nasty trees and that kind of thing too.
Right.
That's where, I've been using Lone Wolf for XOPs, and now I just made my own, which I know you're aware of. But I'd really look at how it attaches to a tree and make sure that you can get into something that's a little crooked. You can get it anywhere you want, because getting that stand right in the tree where you need it is important. And getting up there quiet and setting it up quiet is important. And the problems you get out of welded stands is you get creaks out of the welds, you get creaks out of the metal, the stresses in the metal, the hollow tube echo, all that stuff. So if you go that route, you need to really take that stand out, tweak it around, move around in it, try it in the cold, in the warm, and see if you get noises out of it, and then you got to try and find that noise and eliminate it. Because the last thing you need to do is shift your weight and have a squeak cost you that buck of a lifetime.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you mentioned it. I wasn't going to bring it up because I didn't know if you were talking about it, but you did mention that you made some tree steps or a tree stand, did you say?
Yeah, I've got a prototype tree stand I've been hunting out of for 2 seasons now, and I've got my own prototype sticks, and the sticks are 1.4 pounds, and they're awesome. I'm loving that weight, and the stand is about a third less than Lone Wolf stand, and I'm getting way back in, setting it up, and it's quiet, so I just got to find a way to market it economically if I want to sell it. Might just enjoy making my own stands for myself, too.
Part of the reason that I didn't spend the money to buy a Lone Wolf is because, I obviously have known for a while that you were doing this, and I was hoping that I would be able to wait out the ability to potentially get one. But for this year, I was trying to get by with what I had, and it's not going to work out, man, and I just can't dick around, I got, a month here, maybe a good 6 weeks at this point, I feel like is, that I have to have my shit together to close the deal on potentially.
Well, the good thing about getting a Lone Wolf stand is they retain their value. You can sell them for almost what you bought them for.
Yeah, that's true.
Used.
That's very true. My brother pointed that out to me.
It's just a lot of money at once, I know.
Yeah, and it's not, it's not that it's outrageous or anything. I see the value in it. I see the benefit of it. My brother has a setup. A couple of my friends are running them now, and, they're ranting and raving about them. I just had enough expenses and was trying to cut a corner and see if I could get away with doing it a little bit different way. But one thing I thought is this Hawk setup, it was pretty affordable, and it's really light, which I liked about it. It's really light. A friend of mine that I hunted with last week had one, and we were playing around with it, and it doesn't have the adjustability that the Lone Wolf stuff has, as far as, like you said, hanging on crooked trees and stuff. You're still going to be limited, but for the price, I figured it was a stand that I could get, and if it doesn't work out, then I like to have a couple preset stands in locations prior to the season anyways that I'll typically set up, like, around March or April in a spot that I pinpointed from a year before. And so it'll be part of that,
there's a few people doing it and having it work.
Right.
So.
Right. Mobile hunting. So you were talking about scouting. When you're going in, you're scouting, you're taking in data. I've been doing a lot of the same thing, but I struggle with, you speak upon it quite frequently as, one time. You go in one time and that might be the only opportunity before that deer knows that you're there. So when you're doing in-season scouting and you're taking intel when you're going into these places, how are you doing it in a manner where you feel like you could potentially still go back into these areas and hunt these deer? Are you going back to these exact same spots, or are you kind of
The deer will
identifying?
put up with a little bit, if you're away from the bedding areas. So, like most of the areas I hunt, I take the routes in that everybody else does, and I'm looking at intel from that point of view, and moving through an area, and then jutting off the main where everybody else goes, and taking as short a route as possible into the hunting area so that I can hunt the area more often. Because I think if you just walk up the guts through the swamp, obviously you're going to kick everything out of there, right?
Right.
If I cross a good sign and it's hot, I tend to hunt it right then, and I don't go to my intended place. I also I might pass through an area and think, there's a rubble line coming through here. I think that at the tip of this point, there's probably some deer coming on here, but I won't go over there that day because I'm not going to hunt it that day because of the wind direction or something.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll just pass through, but I'm not close enough to do the damage.
Okay.
I'll take a walk through the woods and look at sign, but I don't do it near the bed areas. I don't do it where I hunt. I'm trying to pick up the intel that the deer's there, and then from there I can figure out where he's coming from. And then when I go into where he's coming from, I go in the dam and I hunt. And I wouldn't say I never go back to a spot. I don't go back to a spot if I didn't see anything or whatever. But occasionally I'll go back into an area if I'm hunting a particular deer that's living in that area.
Okay.
Case in point, we got that big 10-pointer that me and Mario been after. That one's living in the same bedding area, and it's been there the whole time. And every time we penetrate that bedding area, we practically see them. Now, we've got them on trail camera twice, coming in and out of there. As a matter of fact, this morning, 6:40 this morning, we got them on trail cam going in there on a wireless trail cam. And we've seen him 3 times in there, and we know where he's at, so we've hunted every point around it. I mean, what I do, quit hunting. So I still got to go hunt off those points, but I'm trying to go in there as little as possible, and he knows he's being hunted. But as it gets closer to rut, he's coming out of there more often in daylight or going back in while it's still light out more. And I'll start pushing that envelope a little closer.
So when you're doing your in-season scouting, you're more less doing it on the fringes of where you plan to hunt to try to identify like what's going on a little deeper in. Is that correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, because I just, I'm trying to look at these things, and when I went this spring and scouted quite a few areas, now I'm getting an opportunity to go in there, and I feel like if I go into some of these areas, I feel like they're areas that other people aren't going to. So I feel like when I go in there, the one time that deer are gonna know that I'm in there, and I don't want to screw up their travel patterns or tip them off to me being there. But I want to go back to these places and hunt.
Sure.
Yeah, it's been a real eye opener this season, kind of switching up and trying to hunt bedding. And man, I will tell you, you've mentioned it a couple times. When you're starting off doing this, it can be intimidating or frustrating not seeing deer, right? It can really kind of play games with your confidence.
Sure.
Because I've hunted a couple spots that I know they're good. I know there's big deer in there, but yeah, you go in there and you sit for, half a day and you don't see a single deer, and then you do that for another sit somewhere else and you don't see a single deer, it can wear on you a little bit. And it seems like it would be easy to want to just flip the switch and go back to the old way, somewhere where you're going to see a lot of deer, but that can be a little bit of a mental battle.
Yeah, I think moving around a lot has its place. I mean, you go in mobile, you get in an area and you get bad setups where you can hardly get an arrow out of them, or you get bad trees where you're like, I come in here and this is where I was going to set up the signs here, but there's no tree. I'm just thinking right now of this hunt I just went on. Me and Mario went out and we went after that big 10-pointer. And he wanted to hunt this spot where there was a sign coming through. And I said, I don't know if that's happened in daylight. And he's like, well, I want to just give it a shot and find out. I'm like, okay. And I wanted to go try a spot where I don't think anybody's hunted, way around the backside of this bedding area, and get into a thick area that I was checking out on Google Earth, because I was sitting in my tree, and like I said, I scout my way in and stuff, and I'm looking off that direction onto the private land. I can see this big cornfield where everything else is just big timber there and swamp. So I'm like, they're done with the acorns. They're probably going to that corn. And there's a little funnel where they come out of the backside of the bedding area where they go through there. So I can kind of see it from where I was sitting. And it's just wearing on me. So then I went back home and I studied it on Google Earth. And sure enough, there's a little funnel back there. So I went this big loop that day, and I went all the way around to that funnel, and I get in there, and there's this spot where the ground's all churned up. And I'm like, what happened here? The size of like a car. And I get there, and it's all deer tracks. And I don't know if two deer were fighting there or what, but they really ripped the ground up. There's not even trees in there. And I look, and every tree around it is rubbed. And then there's a giant scrape right next to it, and a trail coming out of the bedding area. And this is just on the edge. So I walk into the funnel a little bit. I get in about 30 yards, so I'm in about the middle where I can shoot 30 yards either way and cover the whole thing. And I was pretty depressed because it was like stomach to chest high brush, and you couldn't really sit on the ground. And here are the trees that I saw on Google Earth are now dead because they're ash trees, and emerald ash borer got on them. Mm-hmm. So they're dead and bare, and there ain't a leaf on them, and they're small. So the only tree I could really get into is about 5 inches in diameter, and I have to get up about 20 feet, and it's really small up there, and I'm like, I have to. I'm like, they're going to see me up there, but I'm going to try. It's the only option I got, and I've already got my scent in there. So I climbed that tree. I couldn't get my stand to face the deer coming at me. I had to face it the other way. No matter what I did, I couldn't get that stand on the other way. And that was really bad for me because, it was windy too. You're not going to hear them coming. Yeah. So you almost have to stand the whole time and face them. And so my point is now, who else would have set up in there? How many people would have turned around and just walked out of there? Or tried to do it off the ground where you're not even going to be able to shoot the deer because all you can see is the head over the grass. So I got up that tree, I sat there, and I had a lot of deer go by me. And I could have shot every one of them. But most of them got behind me and would eventually look up and see me. And they'd blow and run into the bushes. And they'd run back into the bedding area, or they'd be in there stomping and carrying on. And you're thinking, well, nothing's ever going to happen, right? But I got that half full glass that tells me to just stay there. Something could come walking out at any time. And while this doe's in there snorting, this big buck walks out right in front of me at 20, 25 yards. And I could have shot him right there, but I knew right away it wasn't the 10-pointer that I was after. And I hee-hawed around about it for a second, and in that amount of time, he got through the window to this apple tree, a little crab apple tree that was growing out in there, right on the edge of the bedding, that I didn't even know was there until I was in the tree. And he got to that, and there was a bush blocking me, and he was there for at least a half an hour. He'd get up on his hind legs and take his antlers and strip the branches and then eat all the apples that fall.
Nice.
And finally, he came back around to that area that was all tore up and gave me a 30-yard shot, and I missed. But the point is, most people wouldn't even have hunted that. they would have given up. And you got to push yourself. You got to be willing to have, crappy setups. You got to be willing to do stuff like that to hunt mobile. When I got back and I told Mario what had happened, he was all upset because he had hunted that spot that I didn't think he should hunt and saw nothing. I think he had one little deer come in right at dark, and you can see that where he's got that where he still gets real frustrated with stuff. And when I miss that deer, how many people get angry? I react to that. Bye, see ya. You win. It was fun. I got a great adventure out of that, and I learned a thing or two. I learned a thing about how they travel through there. And, I just think it's a mindset to that mobile hunting, and you got to get into that mindset, and you don't do that in one season,
I fully agree. It's a confidence thing, a little bit, right? Like, you've built your confidence over the years because, like you said, you were able to laugh about, that missing that shot. Well, part of that is because you're in your head, that you're likely to have other opportunities, and you're confident that you will capitalize. But for a guy that's a little less confident, he might look at that as life's over. He might never see a deer that big again, and he missed the shot, But there's definitely, I've noticed that a lot more lately too, man. Is your confidence level, is your mental state. It does definitely play a role in the mobile hunting and going to new spots. I guess it's human nature to want to stay in your comfort zone. Go to the same tree. You're gonna see some deer. But getting out of that, like you said, if that's what everybody else is doing, if you want to have better results, you got to do different stuff than what everybody else is doing.
Right. One of the biggest things with me and being mobile, I think, is the whole mindset, and I don't say this a whole lot, but the whole mindset of where is everybody else and finding those little hidden corners. Like that 8-pointer, if I didn't figure out, hey, nobody goes over there, that's got to be where they're at, because we've seen everything everywhere else. That put me right where the deer are. And I'm sure that 10-pointer was coming through there too. Just not that day or because of the commotion, But, you got to find those little niches, and you're constantly moving. So a deer might come through an area that you've already hunted, but he might not. But one thing, he wasn't there the day you hunted. So you keep shifting around, trying to cut him off, trying to figure him out, try to find a spot where he's at now,
Yeah. If you do identify there's a good deer somewhere, or it's a good spot. For me, anyways, right now, it's been just that. Getting away from people is like so equally important as me verifying that there's a good deer in these spots. I feel like a lot of spots look like they'd set up good or be good spots, and then, you see remnants of somebody's old tree stand or a bottle of, doe pee or doe estrus that somebody left out there, and it just tips you off to, oh man, somebody else has been here. And typically right now, I just kind of been writing those spots out. I feel like if I'm going to some of those spots and other people are in there, that I'm not doing a good enough job at finding overlooked spots or going further and farther than other people are willing to do.
Right. It's hard to get further than other people. There are people who will walk 10 miles, but outthinking them is possible. Yeah. And I think a lot of times, especially in pressured areas, like Michigan gets a lot of pressure. You're in Michigan, right?
Oh, yeah.
Those areas, you start looking and staying away from the typical or stereotypical forest, wooded area is probably going to find you the deer. They're going to be more in the open, brushy stuff, and away from what people hunt or what they typically think you're supposed to hunt. And I get the same thing here. So where I'm finding those deer is usually in stuff where nobody goes. And you can say that till you're blue in the face, and people just don't get it. They're like, well, people go everywhere. No, they don't. There's stuff they're not looking at. There's a mindset of a hunter on what deer terrain is supposed to look like. And deer don't follow that rule. They like those brushy, thick, nasty stuff where there's no trees. And case in point, I've tracked deer through the marsh by my house in wintertime just to see where they go. When you get on a big buck, get on his track, just start following it. And it never ceases to amaze me that you can follow a buck around that marsh, and he can go, a half mile without ever walking past a tree somebody could get a tree stand in. And you look around, there's trees everywhere. I don't think that's an accident. So you got to kind of look outside of the box. And if you have to hunt off the ground, you have to hunt off the ground. If you have to pull 3 bushes together to get a tree stand on it to get yourself elevated 6 feet, and I've done that. That's what you got to do. You got to use your mind a little bit. If you got to get on a step ladder to get a shot over a bush, whatever you got to do. But a big thing is not leaving a spot unhunted, because those deer will find a niche, especially those big bucks, that doesn't get hunted, and you think, well, I'll just leave him alone because that's, he's got that area. But he'll just die of old age, or eventually come out of there and rut, and somebody else will kill him. You got to go in and go after him, even if it's a long shot. You can't give him a free ride. So you got to kind of cordon off your property that you're hunting and into sections and figure out, okay, I want to make sure I throw a stand at each section. That way I can at least see what's going on back here, know if there's sign back here, what's going on, and know if I'm wasting my time there. And you kind of get a feel for that whole woods and where you got to go.
Right. You just mentioned it. I know we talked earlier about, specifically getting up trees and being quiet, and I've found a kind of a nice advantage to hunting on the ground. I do a lot of hunting on the ground this time of year, typically the month of October. I hunt with my longbow, and I do kind of a little bit of a blend of still hunting, and then, I'll just get to a spot where I feel like it's good, and I might have like a dead fall or some type of tree that just sets up in a way that, I can stand behind it, and I feel like a deer is not going to see me until it's within shooting distance of me. But I found it quite nice to be able to get into spots real quietly and real tight by hunting on the ground. Is that something that you ever do, is hunt off the ground?
Yeah, I've done several hunts off the ground this year. My biggest problem with it is I get busted a lot.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to have to start wearing a face mask. I think they see my face. But they're so in tune with what's on the ground, it's really hard to get away with anything. But sometimes you have to do it. And I've killed some good bucks off the ground. But you get busted a lot more. It's hard. I'm sure there's some tricks from some guys that do it all the time. But it's not something I would do exclusively, because it limits to how much you kill. I mean, it's like going from a compound to a recurve.
Yeah.
You better expect you're going to kill less deer, because you got to get them closer. You know what I'm saying? Or from a rifle to a compound. It's hard to kill deer off the ground, mature deer anyway. But it can be done. The spot I hunted last off the ground was I got back into that funnel, and I pushed myself right up against that apple tree where that buck came out. And I got into a hole where, man, I wouldn't think a person could walk by and see me. I had 2 adult does walk by, and I mean, they're in grass up to their chins. And one of them was, 10 or 15 feet away from me, and all of a sudden just spins his head around, staring right at me. And I am down in this grass. I got bushes in between me where you just see blocks of them, and she could see me.
Yeah.
And then another one comes in, and that one sees me. And I was like, really? And so it's tough. But I could have killed them both before they saw me.
Yeah.
The fact that I let them sit there forever eating is probably why they eventually busted me. But it's just hard. In a tree, I think I would have got away with more, But that spot ain't got no trees.
Yeah, every time I find a spot that I feel like is like, well, this is really good. This will lend a lot of cover. It seems like deer look right at it or right into it, like as almost anticipating that it's a good spot for a predator to be held up for an ambush, and they scope it out.
Right, and if you're not hunting mobile and you've been there before, if they realize you've been there, if they've been there and they've smelled around and they found that out, you better believe every time they come through there from then on, they're going to look at it.
Right. You said you might need a face mask. Maybe you just need to spend a little more time on Facebook and research and look at how some of these guys put their face paint makeup on, Dan. Maybe you need to
paint my face.
I don't know. These guys, I see them all over the internet. They're basically painting their face completely black. It looks like they got upside down moose paddles on their, from ear to ear. Yeah, it's entertaining.
Mario said he thought maybe they heard the evil laughter.
Yeah, I get a kick out of it. I use a little bit of face paint just to knock the gloss off of my face, but I'll have a digital. I got a real nice digital pattern that seems to work real well in the woods that I hunt, where it's kind of a mix of coniferous and deciduous forest, and it has a lot of green and gray tones in it, and it just seems to do a really, really nice job of breaking you up. And I'll have a neck gaiter pulled right up to my nose and a hat pulled right down to my eyebrows, and then just a little bit of face paint to color up what's left hanging out. And I'll tell you, I've had deer 10 feet in front of me, and never a mature deer, but I've had, well, I shouldn't say that. I've had mature does and I've had young bucks, be 10, 12 foot from me, 10, 12 yards from me, and be really comfortable and almost like look through me. So some of that newer, nicer camouflage does seem to work pretty well.
Yeah, I was wearing Enigma, and I think Enigma blends in really well. And there's no way they could see my body.
Right.
The only thing they could see is my face where I was at, because I was in a hole. But I usually don't get busted that bad. It's just that I'm saying off the ground I get busted more.
Yeah.
I get away with a lot too. But
yeah.
I just think that they see that face a lot easier than what people think. Your eyes and stuff, the way it rolls out.
Yeah, I fully agree. Yeah, I haven't killed a deer off the ground yet. I mean, I'm still trying. I'm gonna give it another week or two here, but I'm telling you, we're right about there, right? And basically, once November rolls around, I switch to in a tree all the time with my compound, because I'm not willing to put myself any more percentage of not being able to capitalize on the rut. And it looks like, well, it's starting to happen to you right now. We're going to get one of the first good cold fronts of late October, right? And potentially we're kind of getting into the rut.
Yeah. Yeah, the rut's the same time every year, cold front or not. But weather makes a difference on whether or not they move, in daylight maybe. But the rut's the same time.
Well, let's talk about that, because I feel exactly the same. You see all these predictions and people talking about this, and there's a lot of misconception, I think, about and a lot of very poor information put out about how to approach hunting the rut, that I think really puts a lot of hunters at a handicap, really, if they were to follow what they're hearing. But I know your approach is a little bit different. You're still just focusing on primarily what you're doing for the most part of the year is hunting bedding, but how does that change? Well, let's cover first the what you've observed over the years about the timing of the rut, and maybe it could be a little more specific to your area, but in general, I think you see basically the same time frames that we see here in Michigan, and what, given maybe a day or two difference than what most people do here in the Midwest, right?
Well, there is differences, and you don't have to go too far to get a difference. Like, I would say that the peak of the rut where I live in southeastern Wisconsin is probably about November 3rd or November 4th. But if you start getting to western Wisconsin, when I hunted like up by Buffalo County and stuff, I felt like it was October 30th, 31st, somewhere in there, which isn't a huge difference, but almost a week.
Yeah.
But when you get across the river and get down to Iowa, it seemed to be like it was like the 10th to 15th of November. So it seemed to vary quite a bit regionally, and I don't know what exactly causes that, but it's the same time every year in those spots. you know. And if a guy capitalizes on that and he travels, you can do your travel trips where you get a rut in one place and a rut in another. There's probably a lot of people raising an eyebrow to that, but I mean, I've seen it pretty regularly in the spots I hunted. That you could have nothing going on here and go over to western Wisconsin and have them running all over the place, and then when you come back, they're running all over the place here, but it's over there. You know, as far as that goes, though, generally, if you're hunting those funnels and stuff, you're hoping a big buck makes a mistake. It's mostly, you know, the 2 and 3 year olds that are running through those funnels. If you're after super mature bucks, you're probably not going to get them into funnels. When I get them in funnels, what I'm doing is I'm pushing right up against the bedding areas usually, and they're just moving further in daylight. But you don't get those real big ones, at least age-wise, running through those funnels crazy very much. I mean, you might make a mistake a couple days a year, but I don't want to base all my hunting on what a deer does twice a year. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I absolutely do. And when you say, just going back to when you say peak of the rut, you're talking about peak, basically like seeking activity, not or
Correct,
are you talking
correct.
about actual like peak
Peak
estrus
seeking
breeding?
activity, yeah.
Yeah.
For
Okay.
the peak for a hunter,
Right.
as far as movement goes, you know.
Right.
So I don't know. I haven't done a lot of hunting in southern Michigan, so I don't really know what your time frame is down there.
Well, I've observed the same thing that you're talking about. Typically, I feel that northern Michigan, for whatever reason, seems to happen right around. Well, I know when I go up there, typically, you know, November 15th is our gun opener, and I'll usually go up for a handful of days before and bow hunt and just make like a week trip out of it, which is the same thing I'll be doing this year. You know, I'll have a handful of days before the opener gun, and then the first couple days of gun, you know, I'll hunt, and after that, it's just it basically turns into a war zone up there opening day, so you only really get a couple good days, and then it seems like everything shuts off pretty quickly. But I've noticed down here in southern Michigan, like I can go up there and it seems like everything's full bore. Deer are grunting, chasing. I'm seeing midday activity, and then when I come down here, it seems like it's happening all right over again, and even into Thanksgiving, I'll see some bigger deer on camera midday, and you know, actively see bucks with does and chasing does. So I feel like it happens. You know, I've seen that every year for 10 years now, year in and year out consistently.
Mm-hmm.
But so you're still focusing on bedding, but for
I'm
that,
focusing on different types of bedding in rut, though. A lot, you know, usually it's rut
Right.
bedding,
right,
which is adjacent to doe bedding, and you know, I'm focusing a little more on funnels that are coming out of bedding, like in between two big bedding areas. Like say you got like a 1 acre patch that has all kinds of bedding. There's does in there, bucks in there. There's a bunch of deer that bed in there. And, like to say this place around a little pothole swamp, and a quarter-mile away there's another one, and there's you know a good travel route in between them. I'm going to get up against one real close and hunt in between them on that travel route going between them, because those bucks want to get over to the other one to see if there's any does going on heat over there, but they're not going to go running through their rampant in daylight. You know, well, they do occasionally, but they regularly will go out on a routine and do it daily, you know, to a certain point. They just get a little less nocturnal. Like right now, that 10-pointer we're hunting, we're getting a hard time getting him to come out of the swamp in daylight, which is the bedding area. As soon as you step in there, he knows you're there. But he's going to start as long as we back off a little bit and give him a little bit of space, you know, and hunt more of the watching things kind of stands, and then make the move when it's necessary, you know.
mm-hmm. How are you setting up on these bedding areas? Obviously, you have different approaches and different destinations due to wind, right? But when these bucks are checking these bedding areas for does, I mean, are you going right into the thing and setting up, or, uh, are you planning for him to be walking like a downwind side to scent check the deer? I guess, like, how are you setting up on them
Okay, well, I can think of a
specifically?
couple of them right off the bat. There's one I can think of where the does are bedding in this little patch of thick stuff in between two islands, and the bucks will bed just to the north of them, where they can watch the exit that the does come out of there on. And regardless of the wind, they bed there because the does always come out of the top of that and come across. So what I do is I go and I hunt as if I was hunting those does where they come out of that bedding. And usually when the buck is bedding in that bedding area, he gets up and follows the does through as soon as they come through. But it's right at the edge of darkness when the does move.
Mm-hmm.
But you get within that 75-yard window. And a couple of years ago, we almost killed a real big one there doing that. And then I got a spot down here near my house on the public land where there's a buck bedding area that's primary that they use all year. But there's a doe bedding area that's adjacent to it. And the does come out from, let's say, my south. And the bucks come out of their bedding area from my west. So if I get to where that trail meets, that's a good spot all year if you hunt it at any time of the year, because bucks bed in there all year.
Mm-hmm.
But when you hunt that pre-rut and it hasn't been hunted for a few weeks, there's usually something big in there because they're monitoring those does. So then they come out earlier to check on the does, or if a doe comes through, one will come running right out to check on it. So that's why I'm hunting a little different for the mature stuff, is I'm still getting in close. But the problem with that is if you're a traveling hunter, it's kind of hard to know those areas well enough to know those spots.
Right. That's what
Once
I was
you got a
just
good
gonna,
eye for it.
That's what I was just gonna get at. For a guy that's kind of new to this, and even guys that have been doing it for years, I think it can still be confusing, is identifying doe bedding. I mean, it's relatively easy when you come across the deer bed to say,
Even
oh.
for me, when I get in an area, sometimes it takes me a couple of years before I really feel like I'm in tune with it.
Mm-hmm.
And you put a few years into it, and all of a sudden you start really realizing stuff. But you got to have an open mind. You got to, look at it from that point of view. I mean, once you know what's going on and you're hearing what I'm saying, if you're watching for it, you're going to see it. But if you didn't know what was going on and you're not watching for it, you're not going to see it. It's just like if a guy has 5 stands on a piece of property and rotates through them, he's going to say, you're crazy about this overlooked bullshit. You got to go and test the waters to know.
Right.
So the big thing about hunting mobile, coming back to that a little bit, is that you learn so much. You learn about the land, you learn where these deer are, you learn everything that's going on because you're moving around constantly, seeing it firsthand instead of rotating through these stands.
What I was more specifically, what's kind of the features that separate doe from buck bedding that help you identify that? Because what I was saying is a lot of times I can identify a deer bed, but unless I physically see the deer in there, I'm not too certain. Is this a doe, or is it an immature buck? Is it a mature buck?
Yeah, it ain't easy, and sometimes it even fools me. I've been mistaken on it. But generally, most of the bedding areas I'm looking at are big bedding areas that hold both. A lot of them hold both. But the does usually don't bed right in with the bucks, especially come rut. They're usually on the outskirts. And I'm thinking about the one I was just talking about, where I've killed a lot of big bucks out of there, especially in that pre-rut. That one, the does and the bucks are separated pretty good. by about 100 yards. And I can tell you right now, if I went and found that doe bedding area, I would probably think bucks are bedding in there. Because bucks go through there during rut and rub when they're with does, so there's rubs in there. But specifically, they're not in the beds. And if you look closer at the beds, the doe beds aren't set up like buck beds. The biggest difference between a buck bed and a doe bed is bucks are solitary animals. So they're looking out for number one. Where does, when they bed in groups, aren't necessarily putting their back against an obstacle. They're not necessarily having the wind to their back. They might be facing the wind. They'll bed in circles to all look in a different direction as a group and watch out for each other. When you look at a buck bed and it's a mature buck bed, if a mature buck is using that bed, you look at that, you go, holy crap, how would you ever kill this thing? That's the first thing that'll come to your mind. You look at that and go, this is set up well. You won't do that so much with a doe bed. It's not like I can tell you, the doe bed's blue and the buck bed's red. It's something you got to learn by looking at it. But you can get in there and kind of look at it from the thought point of that buck is a solitary animal. And he's going to have an obstacle against his back so that nothing can get up to him from behind. He's going to have the wind from his back, and he's going to be looking downwind. So when you find these buck bedding areas, there shouldn't be just one bed. That does happen on occasion, but it's rare that a one bed spot gets used a lot. It happens, but it's more rare than what you think. What you usually find for the really good buck bedding areas is there'll be about 10 to 20 beds, maybe even more, in a real small area of like a half an acre where they can move around based on the wind and bed in several spots.
How often do you feel that they change their bedding areas up? Are they pretty consistent unless they get bothered and pushed out of one?
Well, it depends on the deer and it depends on the terrain. I mean, there's spots where it's potluck, whether he's there or one of the other spots. There might be like 10 spots the buck rotates through. And then there's another 50 that every now and then he beds in. But there's some primary ones, and he's going to have like 10 primary ones that he uses on a regular basis. But there you get older bucks too that get locked in one spot. You can't even kick him out of there. You can walk in or kick him out. He comes back the next day. Sometimes those older bucks just learn a spot works for them, and you can't even drive them out of there. But you get other bucks that move around constantly with no pressure. I think they all kind of got their own little attitude.
Yeah. So those are the major features that a buck basically is looking for. Somewhere that he can be in thick cover this time of year and not have to really leave that thick cover to monitor doe traffic, basically to identify, pick up what is the first doe that's ready or willing to breed. Like you said, he's not just running around all nilly-willy, running out in the hardwoods and going crazy, right? He's still
the mature buck is going to set up a trap for those does. He's not going to go, chasing around like the young ones. He's going to set up on them and wait for them.
Right.
You just think about it like this. If you think I'm nuts, anybody listen to this, how does a deer make it to be 5 years old in Michigan or Wisconsin or any place in public land? By running around all day long every day during the rut. I can't walk through the woods during the rut at noon and not run into a guy in a tree.
Right. Yep.
I mean, you can't tell me a deer wouldn't, he'd be dead.
I think about that all the time.
So if they're running around like that, they're going to die. Period. They'll do that. Occasionally, they'll get a bug up their ass, and they'll go off running, and they'll do it for an hour or two or something, and maybe they do that once or twice a year. If they did it more than that, they wouldn't survive. They wouldn't be 5 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Those young ones either learn that quick or they die.
So it's still really just about finding a good bedding area and identifying that there's deer, current recent deer activity there and just starting to work the fringes of it and making your approach, do you kind of look at it that way as like working in a little bit closer and closer, or you just go piling right into essentially a
Yeah, I
destination?
don't like slowly going in, because I think that's like yelling as you're walking in there, "Here I come, get ready." Because they're going to smell that you're there.
Right.
So I might sit back in a spot where I'm safe and I can observe. And a lot of my kill trees, I pick a specific tree, or I get right on the edge of a swamp where I can get over the open area so I can see a long ways, so I can capture movement in an observation and then move to it the next day.
Mm-hmm.
But when it's time to kill, I go in for the kill. I go right in. No pussyfooting around.
Do you feel that there's um uh, like a specific distance that you can stay from their beds where it won't screw them up? Like, is it 100 yards? Is it 200 yards where you can kind of...
There isn't a distance. There's places where you're tolerated. And I think what it is more like where they expect people to be. And if you go where people don't really walk, they're not going to like it. If you think about the trails you take to go into your hunting areas, like you park in a parking lot, you walk down a path that the DNR's cut for you with a machinery to walk back to access this woods. You walk back there, you'll find trails that cross that all the time. You'll see deer walk across it, and if you see them from a distance and they don't see you, you'll see them act nonchalant. They won't care at all. Walk right across it, even though hundreds of people walk up that every day. They'll cross the road. They won't even, freak out. You don't see them blowing when they cross a road where somebody jogger just went up, right?
Mm-hmm.
But walk into their bedding area and see what happens.
Right.
The thing is, when you go into an area where they don't expect you, they take that as a threat, as danger. It's kind of like if you come home one day and there's footprints on the sidewalk going past your yard, you don't really care. You see those footprints in your yard, and you're like, who the hell was in my yard? But a day goes by and you forget about it. You come in your house and the window's ajar and there's muddy footprints coming in your window into your house. You're going to freak out. You're going to nail all your windows shut. You're going to buy a gun. Deer don't tolerate you getting in their bedding areas, and the closer you get, the more it's going to bother them. The closer you get, the more you're the tracks in the yard.
That's a great analogy that you used there, just thinking about that. I never looked at it that way. Yeah, like me just sitting here in my house, if I see somebody walk past my house on the street, yeah, no concern at all. But if they were to come across the ditch and be in my yard, I would wonder why, what are they doing? And then, yeah, obviously, if they were to try to come into my home, danger alert, right?
Yeah, you're making yourself the deer.
Yeah, nope, that's a great analogy. Kind of going back to what we were talking about, the rut and the dates. Yeah, I guess it's kind of hard to do because it's area specific, right? But I guess what I was going to ask you is what you feel like are like the real golden, kind of the golden dates of, late October, early November, where, a guy that has limited vacation time or really needs to pay attention to focus his efforts on a couple specific days. Like what's optimally you feel?
Okay, well, here's what I'm going to tell you is like I said before, it varies region to region.
Yep.
But what I will say is I'm generally in tune with leaving earlier than other people. I like hunting a week or two before other people think it's prime rut and all the chasing's going on. I like when the deer is still real patternable, but they're starting to get frisky. Like for me right now is a good time to hunt.
Yeah.
This next week or so, they're not rutting, but they're acting like the little ones are starting to chase a little bit. They're leaving sign everywhere. Even the big stuff's leaving sign coming in and out of their bedding areas. You can read that sign. You can see it for a mile. You can set up on it. You can follow it back to the bedding area. You can get close. Right now, you can go out there, find a sign, and kill these things. So I like that. But when it gets to real rut, that's when your people who don't have skill do better, because they can go out and just get in the funnel and hope. Where if you use skill, it's kind of frustrating to get out there and your deer's a mile away, or or it's different deer running through, or a deer's running past you, you don't have a shot, you have to yell at it and then make a split-second decision whether or not you want to kill it. I'd rather hunt deer under normal patterns that are a little more aggressive and moving a little early, and I think that's the 2 weeks before rut.
Yeah, so about this time right now, I can tell you I pulled a trail camera card today, and this camera throughout all basically October has been pretty quiet. Couple photos, not much at all. And I pulled this one, and it was tenfold over the course of the last 10 days or whatever. And I have a camera that sets up to take 2 photos real quick, and then it goes into a 30-second video clip mode. And I bet you I'll have to go through them when I get off the phone with you tonight, but I know I got at least 24 30-second clips of bucks sparring and fighting, and some of them were actually really kind of getting into it.
Cool.
Yeah. So, and I'm seeing scrapes pop up right now too, that just kind of all over. It seems like it's, the deer are really starting to get worked up.
Yeah.
Does this bedding change? You were just talking about everybody else hitting the woods, and you like to stay a little bit ahead of the curve. Is it part of the reason is because once everybody does hit the woods, does the bedding change? I know that obviously the deer's nerves get quite a bit different. Do they go to different areas that make it even harder to hunt? Is that something that you're taking into account?
Actually, for me, I think they make it easier to hunt.
Really?
It depends. So, I mean, you can get some properties where hunting pressure will just push all the deer out of it. But if that's the case, I'm probably not there in the first place. But if there's a spot where hunters get everywhere, there usually isn't mature bucks. But what happens is you get hunting pressure in these areas, and those deer start showing up in predictable spots instead of unpredictable ones. Mm-hmm. So the spots that I really pick out that I think are overlooked and stuff get better when there's pressure. I can think of one island in a swamp that has a lot of cattail hunting and all the high grass. Pheasant hunting and all the high grass and stuff around the outskirts of the swamp. And it's got this one island in the middle of the swamp, and that island's always kind of a good spot to hunt. But if I wait about a week after pheasant hunting opens, I usually see something decent there. Which right now I'm going on about a week after pheasant hunting started. So I got to go visit that spot.
I get a lot of guys sending messages in and asking questions about small properties. I know you're doing a lot of your hunting on public land, bigger tracts of land, but do you have any advice for guys that are hunting smaller properties?
So I've got a 70-acre property that I hunt. That me and Dave, my buddy Dave, he owns it, and we hunt it. That's where I hunted tonight. My advice would be not to overhunt it, to learn those bedding areas, and learn how the deer move through there. If there's small properties, I'd probably just have preset stands, unless it's a spot where you put a stand up differently based on the wind. Mm-hmm. But I would just slide in there every here and there. I mean, we try to hunt Dave's farm probably. We hunt it the same days, so I hunt it the same day he does. So our scent image is just one scent image one day that we harass the farm. Mm-hmm. And we hunt it about once every 2 weeks or so. I think that'll pick up to about every week once.
Okay.
For the rut, and then it'll back off again. Gun season, we usually don't even hunt it till the last day.
Guys have to be willing to cut the cord and go, right? Like if they go into a small property and it's not happening and it's not good for whatever reason, don't waste your time, right? You're
well. What I'm saying is just make sure that you don't have that heavy pressure inbred. You got to make sure that your property has less pressure than all the properties around it.
Right.
You know, you think about it like this. Do you ever go to an area where it's small properties and there's one property where there's some anti-hunter there or somebody that doesn't like hunters, won't let nobody hunt, has the whole property posted, it's a small property, and you see big bucks there all the time? Why is that? I mean, everybody sees properties like that.
Oh, yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
I mean, it's simply because there's no pressure there.
Right.
So how you make your farm good is to back off on the pressure. And the more you hunt it, the worse your farm gets. The less you hunt it, the better it gets. But the catch-22 is you got to hunt to kill something.
Right.
But if you're overdoing it, you're just going to murder your farm. So you got to really time when you go in there. Observation stands are key. Having observation stands on the border lines where you're doing real little damage to your property, but you can get up a stand where you can see everything. That's what we do by Dave's place. I mean, that works really good. We'll see one and then move in for the kill. Getting cameras that email you the pictures and not going near it till you have pictures of a shooter buck. That's big.
Right. I just feel like it's been a big thing for me is like recognizing, I used to get hung up, and be like, oh, I know this is a good spot. Historically, it's been a good spot, but it just doesn't really, I don't seem to be seeing the deer. There's not that much activity, but I know it's good historically, so I'm going to just, sit it out. But what I've really come to realize is how many variables I don't have control about. We started off this podcast by talking about bear hunting and dogs coming through, and I have some neighbors where, I might not go on our small farm for the month of October thinking that I'm doing myself a favor by not putting any pressure there. And, then the night I go in to hunt, the neighbor who moved out from the city, who just doesn't seem to know any better, thinks it's a good idea to just take his dog out into our cut cornfield at, 30 minutes before the sun goes down and play frisbee with his dog. And, historically I would be back in that same spot, maybe the next couple days. But now it's just like, man, if things aren't happening on this piece of property or there's things happening that are out of my control, I just cut the cord and go, man. I got somewhere else set up where I know I'm not going to have to deal with those, and I just got to go.
So you got to do a lot of scouting and a lot of mobile hunting. You start learning new spots.
Right.
I run out of spots, I put the stand on my back, and I go find one.
Right. Yeah, because, I mean, how big of a, what would you say your percentage is? Are you doing most of your hunting on public land, or is most of it on private land?
No, it's probably about 60-40 public right now.
Yeah.
It was heavier than that, but the conservancies really aren't public. They're private by application, right? So if you consider the conservancies public, then we'd be looking at probably 90%.
Yeah, that's a little different situation than I don't know of anything here. I'm guessing there's some areas where we have something similar, but that's something where it's public land essentially, but only X amount of guys are allowed in there at a time. Is that what that is?
What a conservancy is the state or government gives these people money to preserve the land, so they get a grant to buy property. But they can never build on it. It has to be kept wild. And these people are into like trees and stuff, but they have to allow hunting. But there aren't a lot of rules set for how they allow hunting, so they get to do things. So in this case, you work for permission to hunt. And another property that I hunt, you have to apply for it and be drawn. But in this particular one that I'm hunting this year, you have to do work. And you work 4 hours, you get your name in a hat once. And I think I worked like 80 hours or something.
Really?
Yeah. And then you get drawn, and when you get drawn, you get to pick the spot, the zone, that kind of stuff.
Gotcha. Yeah, I've really started to utilize public land here in the last couple of years. Growing up, I was just had access to private property, and the thought process always was, well, the public land's where all the pressure is, so I got to stay here on the private. And escaping that mindset has allowed me to really open up my eyes and see that a lot of public land, you get the right spots, find the right spots, they have far less pressure than some pieces of some private parcels.
Absolutely. I see people struggle on private land thinking they got it great, and they're just killing themselves because they hunt so much.
Right.
When really their land would get so much better, and they'd learn so much more by hunting public too. And the thing is, and you just kind of touched on it, is that certainly a lot of private is better than a lot of public. But you might be on a good piece of private. That doesn't mean that there ain't some monster buck someplace out there in a public that's very killable, that's in a little isolated spot that's really easy to hunt. You just got to go out there and find it. So it's just a matter of doing the work. I mean, there's spots on that public that are just as good or better than just about everybody that's listening to private.
Right.
It's just a matter of being able to find it. You got to search through thousands of acres.
Yeah.
I mean, I won't look at most of the public around here. I mean, there's only about 1 out of 10 public pieces I'll even look at, and then when I look at it, I might not ever even come back and hunt it. I'm looking for spots where deer can grow up. I'm looking at a property and I'm saying, can a deer survive to 5 years old on this property? Does it have the cover, the hiding spots? Can people do a drive here and kill everything with a gun? Or is a deer going to be able to survive here? And if they can survive there, then I'm going to eliminate everything everybody's hunting, and I'm going to find a 5 or 10% that's left of the property, and that's what I'm hunting. And that's where the big deer will be.
Okay. My next question to you is, and this might be a little bit hard for you to answer without sitting here with me and looking at a map. And what I kind of intend on doing is when I come this spring to visit you and do the scouting workshop, I got a map that I want to sit down and look at you with. But it'll be interesting because I'm gonna go into this spot that I've never hunted before this year, and I just kind of want. Well, I'm going to tell you how I am approaching it, and then I want you to kind of reflect on to me about what you might do or what you might advise me to do. I have a spot that's in public land. It's up in northern Michigan. It's essentially 3/4 of a mile off the road, maybe a little bit more than that, through nasty, thick cedar swamp. That's the closest access, and past that, there's nothing. I mean, there's miles of nasty swamp, almost impenetrable. I mean, just the most miserable stuff to get through. So, about a mile off the road, this island sets up to be, God, it's probably, if I had to guess, maybe 20 acres of an elevated area out in the middle of this nasty swamp, and it's hardwoods, and it's the elevation change is quite dramatic. I would say from the middle of this island where it's at its highest point would be a good maybe 30 foot elevated up versus where you're coming off of the swamp level. And it's longer than it is wide, and it runs lengthwise north to south, okay? And it's just surrounded by thick, nasty cedar swamp. And I went in a month ago, and I found it on a digital map. I actually got tipped off by somebody that does a lot of trout fishing up there in this area, and they knew of it. And he said there probably is not likely to be anybody else out there. Go check it out. And we went out there. It looked pretty good. Walked around the whole thing. This is the middle of the summer. Identified historical sign of rubs that were, eye level, and probably 24 of them, and heavy trails on the north end of this island. There's real heavy trails. I mean, the heaviest that I see in the state of Michigan. And so my thought process right now is I'm going up there. What I'd like to do is have time to start at the south end of the island with a north wind and kind of work my way through it a little bit versus blowing through the whole thing and potentially putting my scent on there and having the whole thing screwed up. But I have limited time, so what I want to do is potentially on a north wind is get to this stand, and I think I'm going to try to go in there very early in the morning before a mature buck would even come back to bed, be in there, 90 minutes before the crack of day, quiet, and sit all day.
Interesting. I think I'd have a different take on it.
I want to hear yours.
My take would be that they're probably bedding off of that north tip.
Mm-hmm.
And they're probably bedding just barely in that swamp. And in the evening, they're going to get up and come up onto that island. And you could be sitting there to kill them. But in the morning, they're going to come circling around that from the downwind side, and they're going to smell you there.
So you don't think they'll bed on that island?
I don't think they're bedding on the island. I think they're bedding on the swamp tips. The
Mm-hmm.
tip, either the south tip or the north tip of that island. And if all the signs on the north tip, they're probably bedding off of the north tip. They're usually on those long islands. They're bedding off of one or the other tip.
Yeah.
The tips of the pointy ends. They're usually in the swampy stuff. I don't think they're on the island.
That's where the bigger rubs were. Basically right where you just said.
And if you look, they're just coming right up onto the island on those trails, right?
That's what it looks like.
Yeah, they're bedding in that swamp, coming up onto that tip. And if I were you, I would hunt that in the evening, right where those trails come out of that swamp.
Yeah. Now.
Makes it easier to get back there, don't it? I'm trying to get back there in pitch black in the middle of the night.
Well, it takes.
Another thing is, too, when you get back there, it's going to be dead quiet that far back. And when you're coming through that swamp, in the dark, trying to navigate to that, you're going to make a hell of a lot of noise. And everything from miles is going to hear you.
Yeah.
You can get back there during the daylight pretty easy without making a lot of noise. Right. And it's a one and done, go for broke. Get in there and kill them.
The island's big enough where I can move through the swamp at a real fast pace, make all kinds of noise, and I can get to the south end of the island. And, you couldn't run a chainsaw and not have them hear you at the north end, but you could make, quite a bit of noise coming in on the south end, and you would not impact the north end. But then the problem is navigating through the island without, making a bunch of noise. It's a pretty big island. It's really interesting, and I really hope that my thought process is right and no one else is going out there. I did find some old ribbon tapes and stuff but I'm hoping it's the kind of place where guys go out there once or twice and then they say, this just isn't worth going out here because
or maybe just gone.
Yeah.
But those islands do attract people, and bucks get to know that, and they bed in the swamps.
Right.
I'm saying that they're coming up on that swamp off of a tip, and if you get trails coming out of the swamp onto that island, that's where I'd be hunting in the evening.
Yeah. Well, maybe I'll think about going in there in the afternoon then, real early, just basically getting out of a stand for a morning hunt and having a quick bite to eat and then just going right in there. Because, from when I pull out of my camp to when I can get into that tree stand, I got, 5-minute car ride, get dressed, and then it's a good 2 hours to get out there.
Yeah.
But I was just concerned about, going all the way down to that end of it, and then having my wind.
You're going to stand up on the top and yell, "Here I come."
Exactly.
You need to go for broke. Get rid of that trail and kill them. And see, that's the difference between me and a lot of people. I mean, a lot of people will be in there hunting their way back, and I mean, you got to wait for the right wind, but a lot of guys that hunt their way back, where I want to hunt a spot like that tip every time I hunt. I want to go out and have a good spot where I think I'm going to kill something every time that I go out there. I don't want to do this slow move in kind of thing.
Right. Well, I just don't even have that option anyways. I got a week, and our firearms season opens Wednesday. I'm going up Saturday morning, so I get Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday to bow hunt, and then Wednesday, Thursday to gun hunt. And I've got, probably a dozen spots that I'm focused on.
There you go.
So that'll be the plan. I did put a camera out there when I went out there. I set a tree stand and I set a camera. And so when I do go out there and hunt it, I'll do my hunt, and then after my hunt, I'll pull that camera card and I'll have a better idea, I think, of what's going on out there.
Yeah.
Kind of getting down to the end of my list here. Let's see what else. Maps. I've had a lot of guys mail me in some questions about digital maps. I know you talked about earlier you by design have been doing a little less of it because you said it's kind of maybe potentially causing you some conflicts of people moving into some of the areas that you hunt, right?
I mean, mapping my spots?
Yeah, I mean, I've had a couple guys message in asking, if I would be willing to look at a map and help them figure it out, and I'm like, man, I kind of need the same help having you, kind of look at some maps and show me some things.
I've looked at maps for other people a lot, but I haven't been doing it a lot recently because I'm getting so overwhelmed. I get 5 or 10 requests a day. I think people think I'm an ass because I ignore them, but I can only do so much. I want to go hunting, and I want to do my life too,
I totally get it.
I was charging for it, and I was charging $99 to look at a map, and it's still too much. I just got too many people sending me requests.
Wow.
I'm probably going to do something different after the season, but I'm not looking at anybody's maps anymore during the season. It's too overwhelming with me trying to keep up with my own crap.
Yeah.
But after the season, I'm going to probably take one day a week where I'll do it, and I'm going to set up something for a real low price, like $25 or something, and I'll go over a map with a guy on the phone, on the computer.
Yeah, right.
I'm trying to set up something. I want to help people, but I don't want to just sit and spend my life doing it. You know what I mean?
No, I totally get it. I mean, I'm glad that you took the time to do this with me tonight. I swear to God, I can't go on anybody else's podcast right now without seeing you on there. I know you've been getting bombarded, and you've been really lending your time to a lot of people, and everybody really craves the content. So thanks for spending the time for doing this with me tonight. And I've been enjoying the hell out of everybody else's too, man. That scent debate was pretty legit. Those guys put a lot of time into that. That was some really good content. I'd tell anybody that wants to hear a lot about your scent control regiment and how you approach all that stuff to go and listen to I think it's the Down South Hunting podcast, and they did a 3-part series where kind of did a back and forth between you and John Eberhart, who have completely different opinions on scent control, right?
Yeah.
Yep, that was really helpful.
Did you see the video I put up? I think it was yesterday.
I think I got an email this morning notifying me that there was a new video up that said something about, was it along the lines of potentially imaginary scent control?
Yeah, imaginary scent control.
A
bunch of people were saying that a guy that I know who's a big hunter posted a video. He's sponsored by Ozonics.
Uh-huh.
He posted a video where he drops milkweed and it bounces off of a doe, and he says that's proof positive that scent control works. And so I posted a video of me up there 2 days without a shower. I'm bouncing milkweed off this doe, then a buck comes through, and I'm like, it happens to me all the time.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot of interest in running I really like John Eberhart. He's a smart guy. He's killed a lot of big deer. And where guys don't kill big deer, but you're investing a lot of time and money into that regiment, and I find that there's a lot.
Well, how are you going to get out into that island without sweating up in that suit? And I mean, you can't even hunt this way. It's just it's a pain in the ass, and I don't think it makes a difference in the first place.
Yeah.
I can't find any proof out there that it works. Everybody that uses it still gets winded.
And there's like a woodsmanship part of understanding how the wind works, and I think it kind of benefits you just being more attentive to those kind of things. And I think
Right.
a lot of it has to do with how deer move too. So if you're thinking about that stuff, it's just I don't know. I've enjoyed learning about it a lot. It's what I've been focusing on. I've been dropping milkweed. I got stuff all over my house now. And do you have a way? I was going to ask you this. I kind of get concerned. Sometimes I'll want to drop a piece or two. Get concerned about moving around that much. Does it ever cause you to get busted? You go to drop some milkweed or something, and you're like, oh shit, there's a doe, 40 yards out or something. She kind of picked you off moving, or you have a manner that you do it in where you're kind of not moving much.
I don't know. I don't usually get busted from moving too much, but I'm sure it's happened once or twice, but not from the milkweed. Usually if I'm checking milkweed, there's nothing around.
Gotcha. What was the other thing that I just wrote down here? Well, is there anything else that before we wrap up, that you want to talk about, like the rut? I know I kind of briefly mentioned it. There's you can get a lot of bad advice out there on telling you how to hunt this time of year, and it's a short window, right? It's a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Guys want to capitalize on it. Is there anything that you want to say or bring up?
I guess the big thing for me would be to not keep hunting the same funnel over and over again, thinking it's not making an impact. Because you're going to see these studies and stuff where deer go for miles. They do that a day or two, then they go back to their patterns. Those deer stay on patterns, and if you interrupt that pattern, they're not going to just keep coming through that funnel. You got to keep hopping around just like any other time of the year. You got to keep hitting different funnels if you're funnel hunting. When I go on road trips and hunt rut, where I'm hunting all day, I'm usually hunting buck bedding in the morning, and I'm hunting funnels during the day, and then in the evening I usually go back to doe bedding or buck bedding and hunt the rub lines that go around the doe bedding or where the buck's bed adjacent to the doe bedding. So I move like 3 times a day.
Okay. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because that is one thing that I did have written down, and I did overlook it, because I know that throughout the season you really like to focus your efforts on evenings, but I did want to ask you a little bit about your morning and midday
Well, I did
hunts,
almost go out morning hunting on Saturday. I just decided I needed to sleep in for a day because I've been so burnt out.
Mm-hmm.
And got a couple trail cam pics of emailed to me from bucks going right through the funnel where I was going to sit.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So they're starting right now to kind of move in their later morning activity.
Oh, they're moving. They're moving in the morning right now. They are here, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we've been seeing them pretty good in the morning. As a matter of fact, this morning we got a picture of the 10-pointer at 6:40 this morning, which is gray light here.
Right. Yeah.
That's like 7:40 your time.
Historically, and I don't know how I'll change it up this year, but I typically like to sit a little later than most guys are willing to do in the morning. I think a lot of guys, 9, 10 o'clock, they're done. They're mentally checked out. They want to get back into camp, get some food, get warmed up. But I see a ton of deer activity from like 10 to noon, and I think it's 2 parts. Is that deer recognize that people are, they hear people leaving the woods. They watch them leave in the woods. They hear the car doors close and see the people drive down the road, and then it's time to maybe get up and move 50 or 100 yards and check what does move through and whatnot. And I've killed a few deer in that late morning window, and I think a big part of that is just deer recognizing that patterning people that leave the woods. And I think I'll probably continue to do that this year, but having so many more options too, I don't know if I'm going to be anxious to just get to an evening spot or sit those long.
The thing with me, and that brings up a good point for me is that I haven't done real well on mature bucks in midday. I mean, it happens, and I've seen a few here in midday, but most of my mature buck sightings are morning and evening. But you do get some good bucks running around daylight, midday, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen them 11, 12 in the morning, you know. But I usually try to have a window to scout. I'll go check funnels coming out of perceived bedding or whatever, see if there's good rub lines or, you know, big tracks or something, and set up my next hunt, you know what I mean? So I like to have some scouting time. And if a guy hunts all day long, when is he scouting, you know?
Right. Yeah, and you're just real diligently on that scouting, and that, you know, I want to do that too, because you know, that recent information would be real critical, so I'm not spending my time in an area that's not hot. But then I just, you know, I have growing concerns about, you know, infiltrating these areas, but it's just you're just scouting as you're hunting, basically, right?
That's the big thing with me is that, you know, a lot of people, you know, you hear me talk all the time about planning, scouting, and setting up spots and being, you know, having spots to go to. But in reality, you know, a high percentage of the time, I don't even end up where I'm planning on going because of hot sign. You know, I'm scouting a lot. So I have places where I'm going to head to. You know, if I'm going on a trip, like there's a spot I like to hunt in western Wisconsin in the hills. I like to go up there for a week rut trip sometimes. And when I get up there, I'll go in the dark in the morning to a spot where I know there's a good funnel. There's usually some action that comes out of a bedding area, and I'll go up there and sit there and see what happens. But when it gets daylight, I'm going to look around and see what kind of sign we got there, and then I'm going to get down and I'm going to scout. I've got other places to hunt, other places to go, but I might know 50 good spots up there. I can't hunt 50 good spots in a 3-day weekend. But what I can do is check all of them and hunt the best ones.
Right. Okay. What about exiting the woods in the evening after your hunt? Are you sitting in there long after dark, or are you breaking down right after dark and getting out of there? I mean, are you concerned about screwing up deer I mean, if you're in a bedding area and you do potentially.
It depends. Am I coming back?
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say.
In most of the cases, I'm probably not. But if I seen a good buck, then I'm going to be careful about coming out of there. I'm going to be careful about not spooking them. If it's just deer around me, I care less. I'll get down with one right next to me under the tree.
Mm-hmm.
You know, to me, they're like squirrels. I'm not hunting them, so it doesn't matter.
Okay.
So I get down and just leave. I don't try to be quiet or anything else.
But if you do,
unless I'm going to be hunting, you know, if I'm going to be hunting 400 yards from there the next day or something, then I might be careful. I might be quiet, you know.
Just going slow and having a plan mapped out, essentially, where you don't think that you're going to encounter deer after they've gotten up and out of their beds, right?
Yeah, the biggest thing with me though is not getting shot too. There's a lot of guys that hunt after dark or push the limits, and so I do turn a light on.
Oh yeah,
you know?
I don't.
I used to come out all the time in the dark, but I've had a couple of different instances where I've had people draw on me and stuff. So
yeah, I won't even step foot off of my ladder, off of my steps into the leaves without having at least my little green or red LED lit up. Because in Michigan, man, there's so many gun hunters. Well, specifically gun hunting, but
a guy down the street here from my house. His daughter was riding a horse, his 9-year-old daughter, after dark, and somebody shot the horse out from underneath her.
Holy sh!
I mean, that was like 25 years ago, but still, it's like, holy crap. With a 30-30 during bow season.
My God. I was watching a YouTube video, and there's some guys that make a decent hunting video, actually, and they hunt the state forest up where I hunt, but God, I had to laugh. They after they shoot their deer, they at like a pride thing or whatever, you know, and they get a couple nice bucks, and they throw them over their shoulder, and they're walking out of the woods like that, and I'm thinking, man, you're a lot braver than I am, man. So many people see a set of horns coming through the woods like that and be just sending lead your way.
Yeah.
All right, yeah, let's, you know, a couple of these spots that I'm going in, I just want to be diligent on, I may hunt them 2 or 3 times when I'm up there, depending on what I see and how it goes. So, I just wondered if it's to my advantage to wait in the stand, until 30 minutes after dark. I heard some guys say, oh, well, we knew there was a good buck in the area, so, we sat in there till 11 o'clock at night before we broke down and packed up and got out of there. I'm thinking, man, I don't really have the patience or the ability to want to,
11
when it's
o'clock
dark.
at night. Explain that one to the warden.
Yeah, I mean, when it's dark, man.
I get down when it's closing time. I would wait a little while if there's a big buck around, but if he's just sitting there eating, I'd get down. I don't, most of the spots that you're hunting, if you're not hunting over a food plot or a food pile, those deer are just passing through anyways. So
Right.
you just give them a couple minutes and they're gone.
Yeah, I don't know if you've ever heard anybody else say this. I don't know if it's hurting me or helping me, but the last couple of years, on occasion where I do hunt like a food plot, I'll pull out my phone right after it's dark and I'll go on YouTube and I'll just get coyote howling and I'll just crank that up and turn my phone on and some coyotes howling, and the deer don't like that too much. They take off pretty quick, and then I'll get down and get out of there. I just kind of felt like it kicks them out of there, versus not, knowing that it's a human coming down out of a tree. All right.
Yeah, I don't know. I never tried it.
That wraps up most of my rut questions. Yeah, I want to reiterate, thanks for keeping the YouTube feed up and current. I know it's a lot of work, and I really, really been enjoying the content on there. So
cool.
And thanks for, I don't know, we haven't even talked since you did it, but you offered to sponsor our digital deer camp event that we're putting on through my friends over at lifestylelost.com, and the digital deer camp contest. You gave away two spots for your spring scouting session. What time of year approximately will that take place?
We're going to set up the dates towards the end of December. It'll be in January or February.
Okay.
Maybe March. And
for the guys that are interested in entering that, just tell them what to expect out of what that is.
We scout for a whole day. Basically, we go through an area that I already hunt. And what I'm planning on doing is it being the public scouting workshop. And we're going to go through an area where I've hunted quite a while, and I've killed quite a few big bucks, and I'm going to actually show you on public land where I hunt, how I set up, how I access. I'm going to let anybody ask any questions they want. I'm going to show them where I've killed the deer, that kind of stuff,
Mm-hmm.
I haven't decided exactly where we're going to go yet, but the spot we did last year was really good. I've killed a lot of big bucks out of there. Last year I killed my 12-pointer out of there, and I've killed about 9 bucks out of that spot, and that's on public.
Awesome. So we'll be like Saturday morning, I'm assuming we'll be meeting at your house and going from there?
Right. We usually meet here about 9 in the morning, and then we go from here, and we meet back here in the evening, and my wife puts on a big meal. Either we do chili or something else, and we all have something to eat and shoot the bull when we get back. But awesome. No question goes unanswered.
Yeah. Yeah, and obviously it's a good group of guys. I'm assuming guys that are, interested in obtaining that kind of information and investing that time. It's all guys that are pretty into it, right?
Right, yeah. It's always a good time. It's a whole day thing, and I keep it really economical and reasonable compared to things that other people put on that are kind of similar.
Yep, I've seen that, and I will completely agree with it. It is very fairly priced in comparison to what some of the other guys out there are offering. So, yeah, specifically myself, probably my brother, and then a couple of the other guys are, planning on coming over there, and then the winner and a guest will be able to attend it as well. And all guys have to do to have the potential to win those is either they are subscribed to what is the exact name of the YouTube channel, Dan?
Extreme Whitetail Tactics.
Okay. Extreme Whitetail Tactics. You just go there, you subscribe to the feed. If you already are, you're already entered in that part. You just need to go to lifestyleloss.com and submit your name into the digital deer camp. And then it's basically just online. It was started off as a buck pole, but we've expanded on that, and we're calling it digital deer camp. But it's similar to a buck pole, but there's doe categories and youth categories and some other companies. Those guys over at Exodus put in a couple trail camera packages for prizes. There's a custom knife company that put some stuff in. There's some really nice other things in there. And then, you know, I think the guys titled it the Ultimate Deer Hunting giveaway, which is the scouting workshop and a couple of your hunting DVDs, and I think they threw in $100 gas card to cover some of the travel expense too. So
Cool.
but yeah, I just want to say thanks again for doing that, and I'll really be looking forward to coming over this spring and spending the time going through that. So
Yeah, it should be a good time.
So yeah, if you're not already subscribed to the YouTube page, go and do so. And then you know, I was gonna tell you, I sent Mario an email. I had a lot of guys ask me. They keep asking me if the Hunting Beast will have an Instagram account. I don't know if I know you and I had talked about that, and I ran it past Mario, but man, that's a helpful tool for driving some traffic and people to the, you know, getting them to the right spot. I gotta get.
Yeah, if it happens, it'll have to be Mario that sets that up. I'm just technically
I know
not right there, and
I know you're gonna have to
it's
ask
a
me
miracle
about
you
it.
people have me on Facebook.
Right? Well, Facebook owns Instagram. It's all linked together, but it's just a more. You eliminate a lot of that bullshit that's on Facebook with the political garbage and the crying and the whining about everything, this and that.
Mm-hmm.
It's more focused on, you know, for what I go on there for. It's deer hunting, you know. So nice driver, nice way to get some traffic. I'll bring it back up to Mario next time we talk.
Okay.
Okay, Dan. Well, I'm gonna keep you on the line here for just one more minute. I guess in closing, I know you mentioned about that tree stands. Is there anything you wanted to say about that coming up, or are you still staying quiet about it at this point in time? Could anybody expect if they wanted to get their hands on one, when potentially they could?
Well, you know, it's frustrating, but the tree stand still needs a tweak or two before we can do anything with it. And I've just been slow about it because of hunting season. Mm-hmm. But the sticks are complete. They're as good as you're going to get. They're great. But we ran into a hang-up with making them at my company. So we're trying to work that out right now. Mm-hmm. And if they allow it, we're just going to start burning them immediately.
Oh, awesome.
If not, then we got to figure out some other way of getting them done. We're going to have to probably get quotes and stuff from other machine shops.
Okay. So it's all kind of up in the air still right now, but people could potentially be keeping an eye out for something like that.
Right. I've been using the sticks and stands for 2 years now, and I'm really happy. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've seen photos of them. I'm extremely intrigued and can't wait to get my hands on a set and check them out. So I guess I'm asking those questions kind of for myself too at the same time. So
I'm hoping we have something ready after the season's over.
Okay.
That's what I'm hoping for.
Awesome. Okay, Dan. Well, I kept you for a long time tonight. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this, and I'll be staying tuned into your YouTube page, and I hope the next big buck that comes within 30 yards of you, you get an arrow through him.
Well, I'm hoping that's what happens to you. I've killed enough of them. It's your turn.
I'm gonna get it done. I feel
All right.
I feel optimistic. So
get aggressive right to the tip of that island.
Okay, that's where I'm gonna go.
All right.
That's where makes it easy. That's where my tree stand is. So
there you go.
Okay, Dan. Well, thanks again.
Okay.